expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Mercer University or WMUB. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Thanks so much for joining us. The program is made possible by Caduceus Medicine and J. Franklin Automotives. Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the Middle Georgia Spotlight. I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Thank you so much for joining us in the Spotlight this week. And no stranger to anyone in Macon and Middle Georgia. If you have any inklings of politics for the last 3 decades, is our senior senator to the State House, Senator David Lucas. Welcome to our program, Senator.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, Senator, so much we can talk about. You're going back in session next week. We're taping here on a Wednesday. You're going back in session for 11 days, started Monday coming. This show will be airing this weekend prior to you going back. What are the top issues? Now, we know what COVID has done to the budget, but you all broke, you were in session, came out. What are the top 3 issues? Then we're going to talk about the election that just happened yesterday. We definitely want to talk about that. We're going to talk about what do you think the main issues will be that you all will deal with in these 11 days.
The main issue is revenue. Prior to COVID hitting us, we were in a slight recession. And one of the things we were looking at cutting in the very beginning on the budget, when the governor proposed his budget, he wanted 6% in supplemental, and then he wanted 8% in the big budget. Now, that was a total of 14% on a $27 billion budget. And so what has happened is he's reduced that to 11% now. And one of the reasons I think he did it is that in this General Assembly, we passed what we call the market facilitators. That was to find somebody to take and get sales tax off the internet. And March, we brought in $10 million off of that. So they estimated $10 million going through the entire year ending in 20. That's one thing. But one of the other things is that the General Assembly, the Republicans decided they wanted to give a tax break. So they did 0.25% on income tax. Well, income tax, Georgia income tax represents about 42.7% of our budget. That brings in $12.7 billion. So now you take $600 million from that leaves 12.1. Well, that was beginning to hurt because we are in a slight recession and revenues are not coming in. So you had problems in the very beginning. So when COVID-19 hit, it really stuck it to us because sales tax was not coming in, businesses were closed. We took $100 million out of what we call a rainy day fund. That was a $3.7 billion budget, and you take $100 million out, so it leaves you with 2.7. Now we've got all these things. We are cutting folks. Departments are coming in with furlough days and stuff. And one of the main problems that we had, State Patrol and GBI is personnel heavy. We ended up with something like, with retirement, 100 retirements, we got something like 480 troopers on the road. And remember, we had a school that was shown to have, folks shown to have cheated on the test. So that school was disbanded. So we won't get another school to probably 2022. So that leaves us with a lot of vacancies of personnel, bodies on the road. And we've got to fix that.
Now, speaking of, you took me where I wanted to go with the criminal justice. Yes, the state police and the GBI, but a lot of people are saying defund them, especially at the local level. When I say defund, not taking all of that money, but let's take some of the money. They don't need all the money that they have, that we need to take some money from the police department, put it in social services, Medicaid. Where do you come down with the state looking at that same
Well,
thing?
the state needs, we need to better train folks. We need to know if a guy's been on the police force somewhere and had complaints and things, he leave and comes to us. We need to know that.
But you're not a proponent of taking money
I'm
from
not a proponent of defunding law enforcement. With all the crime that's going on, you defund law enforcement, you don't have anybody to answer the call.
But you're for criminal justice reform.
There's no question about that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at people being sentenced, people had crack cocaine Majority of them were black. Others had powder. Majority of them white. But the sentence for crack cocaine was out of sight. And now you have folks looking at it and then reducing the sentences that were given to these folks. Some of these guys got life without parole.
Now, so here we are. Now because of what happened in Brunswick and some other things that's happening away from here, the hate crime bill. Georgia is one of the few states without a hate crime bill. Where is that? Can it be brought up in this session? Do you think it will be brought up in this session? Where do you stand on the hate crime bill?
Well, I stand on passing the hate crime bill, but I'm not talking about passing anything. It's been in the subcommittees as far as the judiciary. I'm looking for the lawyers in the Democratic caucus to look at it and give some direction. I think one of the biggest problems you have is profiling. And something has to be done about that, and something has to be said about it within this hate crime bill. You got to realize we didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about Ahmaud Arbery until the video surfaced. This happened in February. He was killed out there, and the folks like they got away with it if it had not been for the video. And now the GBI is in, and they're investigating the DAs also, because it seems as though these folks finna let these folks go. They weren't even in jail.
Well, first of all, I'm remiss for not having congratulated you. We just had an election yesterday, the 9th. We're taping here on the 10th. You won. You don't have a Republican opponent, so God willing, you will be back in the Senate for another term, starting December.
Right. Well, I have to thank the voters, and hopefully they thought enough of me that I'd done the things that needed to be done in this district. I represent 7 counties.
Yeah. But now, so let's talk about the overall election. You were successful, and some other people were successful, but the election itself. Prior to coming in here, I was listening to your speaker and saying how disappointed he was. Some people at the state level saying it's at the local level. At the local level, like Michael Thurman, the CEO of DeKalb County, he's pointing at the Secretary of this state and saying it's his responsibility. Where do you think what went wrong here, in your opinion?
It's on the state. It's on the state. I mean, you can't make apologies. The folks did not have enough training on these machines to go in and do them, to reset them. I think one of the other things that happened, the vendor who we got the machines from used a paper that was too thick, and that was jamming up the machines. And so we had problems all day. When you look at Fulton, DeKalb, they were standing in line 3 and 4 hours to vote. I mean, you had one lady with an umbrella. It was raining. She had her kid in her arms sitting in a chair, talking about going to vote. That is ridiculous. But you got to also understand that the vendor who the state contracted with was not the first one. The committee that was set up to do it chose another vendor, and this vendor happened to have He was the governor's campaign manager and was lobbying for the other company, which was rated 2, and they got the contract, the largest contract that they've ever got. And so when you look at that, they did not prepare the local folks for the machines. The machines were having problems. The batteries in the machines weren't good. Those kind of things, because that tabulator has a battery that hooks up to it.
But hadn't we had some training? I understand
Very little.
They had a run through, a dry run. Something?
Very little. They got the machines at the last minute, number one. And so people were complaining about getting the training prior to, because you had the election coming up. And so the training to me was not good enough for the folks who were the poll managers handling those new machines.
Now, the Speaker said that he's going to appoint, I guess, the Governmental Affairs Committee, Oversight Committee in the House. You served there many years. I'm sure you know what that committee is. Do you expect something like that, a companion investigation to emanate from the Senate as well, or you all wait for the House and then go from there?
Well, I don't know what the Lieutenant Governor will do. I don't know whether he spoke to the Speaker or not. But the Governmental Affairs Committee, that's made up of members of the House and the Senate. So
So it's a joint committee. It's a joint committee started.
Yeah. So the minority leader would serve on that committee.
Well, let's talk about local election. You have been a proponent of the old laws.
Right.
And we'll have a new mayor, we'll have new county commissioners for the most part. Will you be pursuing that because they have the same problem that you have with revenue? Their revenues decrease. So will you be promoting that or be an advocate for getting us back on it?
First of all, let me say this. Everybody knows I took a stand against consolidation for these very same reasons. What happened to us is in the charter it said that for public safety reasons you did not have to do the 20% savings. That was in there. That was also in the same bill that Robert Bryan and I sent that Allen Peake and the Republicans would not sign. So we knew it was more than just government. It was other things involved in reducing the number of folks that looked like us on these political committees. I mean, you had 15 council members, you had 5 county commissioners, and we were in the majority on all of them. So what that did was reduce our numbers. But what happened to us is that the mayor took $40 million out of revenue in 2 years. And that was equalizing the taxes between city and county residents. You know, city residents were paying something like 22, 23, and county were paying something like 8. And so when you take that amount of money out of the revenue stream, you create your own problem because you don't have any businesses that you are taxing to bring in $40 million in 2 years. And so that should have been done incrementally as you go down the road so you can figure your way out. But the old law was put in place because Columbus was the first city to consolidate in Georgia. And they had no money, and we passed that bill about 11:45 before we signed it died that year because they were dead broke. They froze property taxes in Columbus. So whatever your property tax was then, they would stay that way until you got sold the property, you gave it away or something like that. Our problem is they've gone from $4 million in surplus to 28. They did some things with insurance. They decided to redo the pension plan. That is, new employees.
They be in the city of Macon, Bibb County.
The new employees are on a different plan than the old plan, the pension plan, because pension plans are losing money and stuff. And so they've got to pay that until these folks deceased. Period. Because that was a guaranteed thing. And so you can't mess with pensions because the federal government would get at you when you go messing with folks' pension plan.
But they're saying that there's a possibility they're going to furlough people, cut back on programming. Gyms going to close at a time when our kids need it more than anything, the recreation centers. Where do you come down on that?
Well, the problem is they're saving money. I mean, they're facing the same thing the state is facing. You either going to do a millage increase, you can't hire 100 deputies without paying them. And you're going to have to up that pay because they make less than the Board of Education.
But what about the recreation? The people working in the recreation department.
Well, the same
Aren't
thing.
They as important?
The same thing with recreation, Jack, is what you gonna do with the kids? They got breaks. So what are they gonna do?
That's my question.
There's no question. They talking about not opening swimming pools,
laying off the workers.
They furlough days on the workers. This pandemic has hurt every community. Now, what the county is looking for is what kind of money they gonna get from the federal government. We're gonna get the money, they say somewhere like $8 billion or better, and then we're supposed to, shell it out to the various local governments. Now, if you're $500,000 or more, you get a direct payment. So you don't have to worry about the state peeling off anything to you. But we've got problems all around. When you look at rural Georgia, the thing I've worked on is rural health care to make sure that rural folks can get good health care and not die because they don't have any resources or die because they can't get somewhere to be seen about. That's what I've worked on, and we've done a very good job on it. We started with telemedicine in Hancock County. We put telemedicine everywhere but Hancock County. Hancock County folks tore up the machines. I had to pull them out, the ambulances and stuff, because they had a chairman of the county commission that didn't like it because she was not in charge. Well, you can't be in charge of health care I took Mercer University, who has a medical school, to work with me and try to develop a way that we could serve rural communities. And we did through telemedicine. Now we put a clinic in Plains, Georgia, where former President Jimmy Carter is. We put a clinic in Clay County on the Alabama line, which is Fort Gaines, Georgia. They had no health care. We did that. And we put the clinic in, and Mercer doctors are running the clinic.
Well, speaking of telemedicine in Hancock County, first of all, I'm sure you would join with me in paying condolences or sending condolences to the longtime judge over there, Edith Ingram,
the first black judge in Georgia,
who passed.
And she might have been the first black in the country. I'm not sure. It was back during the day.
Yeah. But also in Hancock County, you said you worked hard to get this medicine, to get rural, but it's been reported that that's some of the highest incidence of COVID-19 is in Hancock County, other than Baldwin, not Baldwin, but Dougherty County down there. So what more can we do to make sure that people in rural counties have access to better health care? Will expanding Medicaid do it?
First of all, the local government folks have to invite and want to receive you in there to help them, number one. In Hancock County, they can elect anybody they want to. They 85% minority. They can elect anybody they want to. When you got elected officials that fight health care for your folks because you ain't in charge, there's something wrong with that idea. When telemedicine that we started in Hancock County, the folks in Texas came to Mercer University and wanted to know how to do it, and they put telemedicine through the legislature. They put it in Texas because they got these big old counties and they're widespread. In Georgia, we've done telemedicine. You can put specialists on and watch it on TV, and they can examine you while they are watching you on television. And the doctor can say, that person doesn't look right. I don't like them tests. We're going to have to change. We're going to have to do something else. Yeah. And he can be 1,000 miles away.
You know, we know your record of work with not only medical school of Mercer, but also Morehouse College of Medicine. You've been very, very a big proponent of both of those. But what we have witnessed in this pandemic is that I had Navicent Health people on a couple weeks ago. I've had an African-American doctor on. They all talk about the same thing. There's disparities in health care when it comes to the minority communities. So how do we fix that? Does Medicaid expansion fix it? Does more telemedicine fix it? Because we have these great medical institutions here, but we still have poor outcomes.
Well, when you look at health outcomes, we're like 131. And Houston County, it might be 39. But the Central Georgia Health Director decided that the free testing, and they would get a test, would be in Houston County. I had a problem with that because Bibb County pays the majority of the bills for the North Central Health District. We pay those bills. The medical outcomes are worse in Macon than they are in Houston County. So you can tell that's by disparity of income. So we finally got it in. I talked to the governor's office and talked to them about it and get more testing in. One of the problems is that you had to have these symptoms of fever, coughing, hard to breathe, or you couldn't get tested. Mm-hmm. And you might be walking around with the germ and don't have any of the symptoms. Mm. And so now we're doing the testing. We've got churches that's got the test and give them the test to folks and stuff. Yeah. So that is one of the big problems we had with COVID-19 was the testing and the equipment and stuff to do all that testing. We put $100 million in. We don't know how far or whether or not we got to go back to the well to get some more money just for COVID-19. Now, when you start talking about Medicaid expansion, I doubt very seriously if Georgia tried to do it, the CMS would agree to it. Because now they see, y'all need some money, so therefore, you gonna fill up the hole. Well, I doubt if they fill up that hole.
But aren't they giving everyone now, whether you have insurance or not, you can get tested. If you get COVID, you get treated, whether you have insurance or not.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah. Now, but get back to Macon. Now, you talk about the state and the Northeast test, district where they are tested. But here in Macon, CVS has been designated as a test site.
And it's in North Macon.
And it's all the way on Bass Road.
And the buses don't even go there.
And very few people live out that way compared to the.
They understand.
But is that the state? Who made that decision? Was state, local, federal government?
I think that the private corporation had to make that.
But did they consult? They had to consult with someone.
I don't know who they consulted with.
You'd think they would consult with the mayor, and they would have said, "Well, look, put it centrally located."
You know, I don't know who made that decision.
Well, we know you didn't make it. You wouldn't have gone along with that. I know.
If had I known about it, I would have fought it.
Yeah, but let's get back to this election, because everything I heard you say many years ago, and I've repeated it many times: politics dictates policy. Policy dictates where money is spent.
Right.
And so we have a new mayor, we have a new county commissioner. Will you, if you're going to fight for this money, this penny, this OLOS, will you have some type of oversight as to how that money is spent, or just where it will go once it gets here, and who benefits from it?
The oversight would be the commissioners.
But the state won't have, even though you voted, you won't have any.
The state, in order for Macon Bibb County to get the OLOS, it's not a local bill, it's a general bill, because it's a state law. And you have to bring them within it. We had worked out an agreement, Senator Kennedy and I, because we were very much at odds. And what we had worked out is the law says that 100% has to go to property tax rollback. But in it, when you implement the tax, you got the first 10 months of it is not designated. So what I said is, what we'll do, why don't we take the first 10 months of revenue, and anything after 10 months will go to 100% rollback. And Senator Kennedy agreed to that. So that's what we got agreed to. And then, of course, Representative Beverly decided to fight it. He told me personally that whatever we agreed to, he would be with it, but then he turned around and fought it at the last minute.
Why? I mean,
what was his explanation? He says he's adamant against sales tax. Well, sales tax taxes folks for the basic living experience. I understand that. But you talking about a sales tax where you get the money in quicker than going out and borrowing money from the county.
And paying interest.
You get that money in quicker. When you start talking about the little folks, what about the folks who can't afford to pay these fees, whose kids are enjoying the recreation? Mm-hmm. But now you got a county saying, well, we furloughing the recreation folks. So these kids are they gonna be at home? Are they gonna be on the street? Mom, daddy, somebody got to work. And so who's gonna be there to make sure that whatever these kids are doing is constructive? Mm.
Now, we have a runoff, all probability in the mayor's race here, and a couple other races on the 11th of August. Can you assure, and I'm not saying you can guarantee, but from your position in the Senate, can you assure the citizens that you're going to look into these glitches that happen to these voting machines and some answers? You're going to be looking for some answers that we won't have this problem in August, and especially we won't have it in November, that they're going to fix it.
Since then, this morning when I got up, I started calling folks, because I met with the Secretary of State a week and a half ago. We had appropriation hearings, and I asked them about these same questions. I said, well, I understand a lot of folks have not gotten the absentee ballot. Well, we're working on well, they got a vendor that sends out their absentee ballot. I had a problem with that. You in charge of it, so the Secretary of State's office ought to have been sending out their absentee ballots. I know folks got the ballots the day before the elections, so they had to fill it out and put it in the drop box. They hadn't got them. A lot of folks went and voted at the polls who asked for absentee ballots but never received them.
Do you think that you would, because, I'm not asking you to advocate for legal action, but do you think people who, maybe a guy, I know this happened some time ago with Henry Ficklin, former Councilman Henry Ficklin, where some discrepancies, sued and got a revote. What about a person that says, look, these absentee ballots have been messed up, I want to sue to get a revote? Where would you come down on that?
Well, it'd be hard to say, because I don't know how many folks of being involved, it would be a class action suit. Number one, I don't know how many folks.
But you think, but a candidate would be within his or her right if they would ask that question because of all of the discrepancies that happen.
But there's no question about that. You don't know what has happened. I mean, they got to Friday to finish counting absentee ballots.
And then the election will be certified later, sometime later.
Yeah.
Certified by the Secretary of State, not.
Yeah, but they got until Friday to get it together to send to the Secretary of State to have the election certified.
So if I listen to Michael Thurman and some others, they said this is the same person that caused the problem in the first place. Now he is going to certify the election that he messed up. Then we got Stacey Abrams saying she wants to do it was a suppression of the vote. She thought it was. Does it make sense to throw all that in here?
Well, it makes a lot of sense because since she ran, we've been dealing with this issue, the suppression of the black vote. The 500,000 folks who were thrown off the rolls prior to the election, prior to the year of the election when Kemp ran as governor, and he remained as Secretary of State and oversaw the elections where he was on the top of the ticket. You know, we've got those things, but it's hard to deal with. You know, you're still dealing with a majority Republican General Assembly, and therefore they support these folks.
In a Republican administration.
That's right. And so, you know, we fight.
But we still have the judiciary.
You have the judiciary, but we fight. We fight, we challenge, we do all of those things. You got to realize the census. Folks don't talk about the census. The census will dictate what the 26th senatorial district would look like. And if you don't do it, then those numbers are not crunched into the total thing, and so you don't get the true figure. You know, reapportionment, the figures come in next year, we turn around the following year and reapportion the state. That's the reason there's been a question about the committee, setting up an independent committee to do reapportionment. I doubt very seriously that's going to happen.
Taking it out of politics, but the people who have to vote, like you said, in control, and they're probably not going to give up that control easily.
That's right.
They're Republicans. Well, Senator Lucas, we have discussed a lot of things because a lot of things are going on with the COVID-19, going back in session. You had this long break. And you've been in there 30, how many years you've been in Senate? I mean, in the State House or Senate combined?
45.
Have you ever had a break like this and go back such a long time?
Never had an election and the General Assembly was in suspension. Never. Never in my 45 years. You know, one of the things that I did prior to the leaving was to say that we ought to be able to raise money while we had a suspended session, because this is something that's never happened. And the law says that you can't receive money while you're in session, but your opponent can go out and raise all the money while you still in a suspended session. You're not there, but you couldn't raise any money.
Well, fortunate for you, you didn't need any more money. You won with a little bit that you had, and we thank you for your service for this community for over 40 years, and thank you for joining us here on the Middle Georgia Spotlight. We've been speaking with Senator David Lucas, who is our senior senator, been representing this area, the state representative of the Senate for quite a long time, and wish him well in the upcoming session. Until next week, I'm your host, Jack Ellis. Goodbye.